if you look at the dodges and tricks that people use to scam the system under the Nazis, that would be a lot less possible now. We have biometric identification, we've got eyeball pictures, we've got face recognition, we have more sophisticated tools for spying on people. You could spy on them quite a lot then, but you can spy on them even more now. So when one of these regimes gets in, it's getting a bit scary about how you might dislodge it. I think they do start crumbling when they fail to deliver on their promises, when they have said this is all going to be wonderful, and then it isn't. And young people were very active in the resistance during World War II, as well as other resistances, and I think there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, they don't have children. Number two, they are often quite idealistic, and number three, they're up for physical risk-taking. So I'm old enough to have actually known people who were in the French, the Polish, and the Dutch resistance, and they were under 20 when they did those things, quite amazingly. So that's one reason that they're young. We're seeing a mass movement today of young people, and that would be the Extinction Rebellion. And they're actually moving the political needle because they're numerous enough so that politicians who can count realize that these people will soon be voting. And if they continue on saying that there is no climate crisis, those young people will not vote for them. So even young Republicans in the United States are saying we need to pay attention to this. So that's why it's young people. How do they do it? That depends on how totalitarian a totalitarian regime is. In a country like this one, where they don't actually shoot masses of people having protests, you can have a public, visible protest. You can have lots of people on the street. Once the dictatorship gets firmly entrenched, that's when they start shooting demonstrators, protesters, and marches, and that's when things go underground. So I'm not going to give away the plot. Let us just say that before recent public events in the United States, people were saying about the testaments, well, it's all very well to feel that a revelation of truth is going to change anything, but blah, blah, it hasn't changed, and blah, etc. But now we have several whistleblowers, who do actually appear to be changing things by revealing true things that have been kept secret that have happened.
I mean, going back to the testaments a bit, one of the characters, as you mentioned, Aunt Lydia, is someone who we get to know intimately from her perspective this time. We become aware of what her motivations are, what her ideological values are or aren't. Tell me a bit about that process of getting into her head. And did you surprise yourself ever by finding an affinity where you didn't expect it?
Oh, I think this is a person we've seen in history many times, in one form or another. So it's always interested me, how is it that people get into hierarchies of dictatorial regimes? It's either that they're true believers, they actually believe this thing, and they believe that therefore the bad deeds that they are committing are in the service of a higher good. A lot of people like that were old Bolsheviks who then got purged by Stalin because... I was
going to say the true believers were the first on the chopping block.
Well, because they said you're not being true to the true belief. Oh, well, off with your head. This isn't what we meant when we killed all those other people in the aid of the classless society, said they, and that was the end of them. So that can happen when any true believing movement gets taken over by opportunists. So the second motive would be opportunism. this is the winning game. It's the only game in town, and therefore if I want to move up in the world, I will align myself with it and become somebody within that structure. And the third motive is fear. If I don't do this, it'll be me on the chopping block next. And those motives can be combined. You can have two of them, you can have three of them, mix and match. So with Aunt Lydia, it's fear first and foremost, and she's given a pretty stark choice: this or that. This being work with us, that being you die. So that's how she gets into it in the first place, and then she realizes that within it, there's going to be competition for top slot, which there always is in these regimes. I don't know whether you saw the Death of Stalin, the film.
Great film.
Yeah, so they're all standing around figuring out which of them, which of them is going to win, and therefore which others are going to lose. So she's certainly aware of that, and she's certainly aware that there are people within her own organization who would like to bring her down. So she has to be aware of that. She has to navigate the world of the men in charge. She knows she will never be a man in charge, so she has influence but no power. How does she get her influence? Just like J. Edgar Hoover and the KGB, she collects dirty secrets on people. Just as Trump was attempting to do
With
in the
less
Ukraine.
finesse.
Rather less finesse, yeah, indeed.
I mean, did you find that there were moments where you maybe had your own sense of morality challenged by writing a character like Aunt Lydia? Because I think all of us like to think if we were witnessing the rise of an authoritarian regime, we would all be Sophie Scholl, right? We would all be that resistance fighter who, dies tragically doing the right thing, and photos of us are remembered in history books.
That's what we
forevermore.
think. It often doesn't turn out that way. So, reading stories of resistance fighters, some of them survived, and a lot of them got killed. There was an idealistic group, anti-Hitler, at the beginning of the Hitler regime called the White Rose. They were university students, and they were putting out anti-Hitler newsletters, and they all got killed. On the other hand, there were two resistances in France. One of them was communist, and the other was called L'Alliance. And the head of L'Alliance was a woman, and she never got. They did catch her once, but she managed to wiggle out. She managed to wiggle out through some bars on a window and escape. Thrilling story. So some of them did survive, but the question is, what would you have done in such a situation? And none of us know. We don't actually know what we would have done.
My great aunt was one of the doomed fighters. She, when Bengal was part of the British Empire, this was in the 1930s, she gave up her job as a teacher. She joined the armed resistance to the British, and there was this thing called the Chittagong Uprising. And after leading some successful raids, she disguised herself as a man to lead a armed raid on a British club where there was a sign saying, no Indians, no dogs. And she was wounded, and she had to poison herself, otherwise she'd be captured and tortured for secrets on the rest of the network. And so she chose to take her own life. And it was something that we grew up in the family talking about a lot. And there was certainly a little bit of inflated ego of, oh, well, if I was in that situation, this would be me. And it's only now I realise, well, look, my favourite verb is sitting. I'm not sure if that could be me.
It might be in
Maybe.
some other occasion. There was a famous Protestant pastor near the Swiss border during the war who decided that he and his whole town would rescue Jews. And he talked the whole town into doing it. And it wasn't the religion, because there are other towns like his nearby that didn't do it. But he decided they would all do that, and they all did it. And what enabled them to do it was that there was a secret source of information within the Nazi regime that was warning him of raids. So they would get this warning of a raid, and all the Jews that they'd been hiding and then smuggling over the border into Switzerland, they'd all run off into the woods. So the raid would happen, the place would be searched, nobody there, they would go away, people would come out of the woods. And they never found out who that person was. But there were, in fact, quite a few people like that who were within the regime and were making known information that they had that was helping people like him. There are, in fact, a lot of whistleblowers within the bureaucracy of the United States. We just don't usually hear about them.
Until now.
Until now. Well, this is a big whistleblowing. Usually they're whistleblowings on the level of somebody took, 1,000 paper clips home from the office. They shouldn't have done that. So it is part of human nature. We know a lot of bad parts about human nature, and as I say about atrocities, it's not done by the squirrels. It's people doing it to other people. So we know that people can do bad things, but we also ought to be aware of the fact that people can do good things.